As the 18th century dawned, Europe was a tapestry of competing powers, each vying for dominance. In the north, a conflict was brewing that would reshape the balance of power, the Great Northern War. Amidst this tumultuous backdrop, a young king would rise to become one of history's most enigmatic military leaders. In the heart of this northern realm stood Sweden, a kingdom that had risen to prominence under the ambitious rule of the House of Vasa. But it was under Charles XII, a king who ascended the throne at the tender age of 15, that Sweden would embark on a dramatic and turbulent journey. Charles XII, known for his indomitable will and unparalleled military acumen, would steer Sweden through a series of epic battles and campaigns. His reign, marked by both brilliance and controversy, would not only define his legacy, but also leave an indelible mark on the history of Sweden and its neighbors. Join us as we delve into the life of Charles XII, the warrior king of Sweden. From the grandeur of his royal court to the brutal battlefields of the Great Northern War, we explore the saga of a monarch whose actions reverberated across Europe and shaped the course of history. Born on June 17, 1682, Charles XII was the eldest son of King Charles XI of Sweden and Queen Ulrika Eleonora. From a tender age, he was immersed in the rigors of royal education. His days were filled with lessons in statecraft, military tactics, and the sciences, molding him into a well-rounded yet fiercely martial young prince. Under the watchful eyes of his tutors, Charles developed a keen interest in military affairs. He was often seen partaking in drills and exercises, displaying an early aptitude for leadership and strategy. His education, though comprehensive, was heavily skewed towards preparing him for the role of a warrior king, a destiny that would soon beckon. Fate, however, had its own plans. In 1697, tragedy struck the royal family as King Charles XI passed away, leaving the kingdom in the hands of his 15-year-old son. The young Charles XII ascended the throne, stepping into a role that demanded wisdom and strength far beyond his years. Charles XII's coronation was a grand affair, yet it was shadowed by the immense challenges that lay ahead. At an age when most youths were still under guidance, he was now the ruler of a kingdom. Surrounded by experienced advisors and watchful nobles, Charles faced the daunting task of proving his mettle as a monarch. From the onset, Charles XII's reign was tested. Neighboring powers viewed the young king's ascension as an opportunity to challenge Sweden's position in the region. But they underestimated the young monarch. With a blend of youthful vigor and a surprisingly mature grasp of state affairs, Charles began to navigate the complex waters of European politics, setting the stage for his legendary status as a warrior king. The dawn of the 18th century witnessed the simmering tensions in Northern Europe erupt into open conflict. The Great Northern War, a struggle for regional supremacy, was ignited. Sweden, under the young and ambitious Charles XII, found itself encircled by a coalition of formidable adversaries: Russia, led by Tsar Peter the Great, Poland, and Denmark. The coalition, sensing an opportunity to curb Swedish influence, was quick to capitalize on the perceived vulnerability of a kingdom led by a young monarch. Their objective was clear: to redistribute the balance of power in the north. For Charles XII, this was a call to arms, a challenge to defend his realm's honor and standing. The early phase of the war saw Charles XII demonstrate his military genius. In November 1700, at the Battle of Narva, against a Russian force more than twice the size of his own, Charles secured a stunning victory. It was a testament to his tactical acumen and the discipline of the Swedish army. Buoyed by his success at Narva, Charles turned his attention to Poland and the Baltic states. His campaigns were marked by a series of swift, decisive actions, outmaneuvering his enemies and reinforcing Sweden's dominance in the region. These early victories not only cemented Charles' reputation as a military commander, but also seemed to affirm Sweden's supremacy. However, the tides of war are ever fickle. The coalition, learning from their early defeats, began to adapt and counter the Swedish tactics. The war dragged on, stretching Sweden's resources thin and testing the limits of Charles's military strategy. The turning point came with Charles's ambitious but ill-fated campaign into Russia. The harsh terrain, the scorched earth tactics of the Russians, and the brutal winter took a heavy toll on the Swedish army. The disastrous Battle of Poltava in 1709 marked a decisive defeat for Charles, altering the course of the war and signaling the beginning of the end for Swedish dominance in northern Europe. Charles XII of Sweden, often hailed as a military prodigy, possessed a tactical acumen that set him apart in the annals of warfare. His strategies, characterized by boldness and innovation, often caught his adversaries off guard, securing crucial victories for Sweden in the face of overwhelming odds. From the stunning victory at Narva to his daring campaigns across the Baltic states, Charles's ability to think several moves ahead of his enemies was evident. His use of speed, surprise, and decisive action became hallmarks of his military approach, earning him a reputation as one of the great tactical minds of his era. More than just a strategist, Charles XII was a king who led from the front. His personal bravery was legendary. He was often seen in the thick of battle, rallying his troops and leading charges. This hands-on approach inspired fierce loyalty and morale among his soldiers, who saw their king as a warrior who shared their risks and hardships. Charles's presence on the battlefield was not merely symbolic. It was a strategic element in its own right. His ability to read the tide of battle and make swift decisions was enhanced by his direct involvement. Yet this bravery often bordered on recklessness, exposing him to great personal danger. Despite his military prowess, Charles XII's campaigns were not without significant challenges. The harsh winters, especially during the Russian campaign, proved to be a formidable adversary. The bitter cold, coupled with logistical nightmares, stretched the Swedish army to its limits. Moreover, as the war progressed, Charles's enemies adapted to his tactics. The coalition forces, learning from their early defeats, began to employ strategies that neutralized the advantages of the Swedish army. These evolving enemy tactics, along with the logistical and environmental challenges, tested Charles' leadership and strategic ingenuity to its breaking point. In a bold, ambitious move, Charles XII set his sights on Russia, a decision that would have far-reaching consequences. This choice to invade the vast and formidable Russian Empire was driven by a desire to neutralize one of Sweden's most persistent threats and to assert Swedish dominance in the region. The decision was not without controversy. The vast distances, the harsh climate, and the logistical challenges of sustaining an army in such an environment were daunting. Yet Charles, ever confident in his military prowess, believed that a decisive victory in Russia would secure Sweden's position as a preeminent power in Europe. The march to Russia was a grueling test of endurance and resolve. The Swedish army, traversing hostile territory, faced not only the challenges of distance, but also the hardships of weather and supply shortages. The further they ventured into Russian lands, the more arduous the journey became. As they pushed deeper into Russian territory, the Swedish forces encountered scorched earth tactics employed by the Russians, leaving them with little to forage and scavenge. The harsh winters and the dwindling supplies took a heavy toll on the men, testing the limits of their endurance. The Battle of Poltava, fought on June 27, 1709, marked a turning point in the Great Northern War. It was here that Charles XII's ambitions met a formidable Russian force, led by Tsar Peter the Great. The battle would prove to be one of the most decisive encounters of the war. The battle was intense and fraught with strategic maneuvering. Despite initial successes, the Swedish army, weakened by the long campaign and outnumbered, faced an uphill battle. The Russians, well prepared and fighting on familiar terrain, gradually turned the tide in their favor. The defeat at Poltava was a crushing blow to Sweden and to Charles XII. The once invincible Swedish army was forced into a disastrous retreat, with Charles himself severely wounded. This battle marked the beginning of the end of Sweden's dominance in northern Europe and heralded a shift in the balance of power. Following the devastating defeat at Poltava, Charles XII found refuge in the Ottoman Empire. His unexpected sojourn in this distant land was marked by a complex interplay of diplomacy and intrigue. In the Ottoman court, Charles XII was both a guest and a political pawn. His presence was a delicate matter, balancing the Sultan's hospitality with the geopolitical interests of the Ottoman Empire. Charles, ever the strategist, sought to use his time in exile to forge new alliances and plan his return. After several years in the Ottoman Empire, Charles XII made a dramatic return to Sweden. His homeland, weary from years of war and economic strain, greeted their king with a mix of relief and apprehension. Undeterred by the setbacks, Charles XII immediately set about reviving Sweden's military fortunes. His unyielding determination to continue the war effort was met with both admiration and resistance from a nation exhausted by conflict. Charles XII's life came to an abrupt end in 1718, during the siege of Frederikston. The circumstances of his death, struck by a bullet while inspecting his troops, remain shrouded in mystery and controversy. The death of Charles XII marked a turning point in the Great Northern War and in Swedish history. His passing signaled the end of an era of Swedish military dominance and ushered in a period of significant change for the nation. Charles XII's legacy is a complex tapestry of military genius, unwavering determination, and the perils of personal ambition. His reign, though marked by brilliant victories, ultimately led Sweden into a costly and protracted conflict. Yet, his impact on Swedish and European history remains undeniable, a testament to the enduring influence of one of history's most enigmatic warrior kings. While Charles XII is predominantly remembered for his military campaigns, his domestic policies also left a significant mark on Swedish society. His reign saw a focus on centralizing authority and strengthening the monarchy, which had both immediate and lasting effects on the nation's governance. Charles XII's efforts to consolidate royal power and streamline administration were aimed at supporting his military campaigns. These reforms, however, also led to increased taxation and centralization, which had mixed effects on the Swedish populace. Under Charles XII, Sweden's status as a European power was both elevated and challenged. His early victories solidified Sweden's reputation as a formidable military force, but the prolonged conflicts eventually strained the nation's resources and influence. Charles XII's aggressive military stance and his initial successes made Sweden a key player in European politics. However, as the war dragged on, Sweden's position weakened, leading to a shift in the balance of power in Northern Europe. The long-term consequences of Charles XII's reign were profound for both Sweden and Europe. The war's end saw Sweden cede significant territories and marked the decline of its era as a great power. This reshaped the political landscape of Northern Europe and had lasting implications for the region. Charles XII's military campaigns, while initially successful, ultimately led to substantial territorial losses and a weakened Swedish state. His legacy is a reminder of the fleeting nature of military glory and the complex interplay between warfare and statecraft. Charles XII of Sweden, a king who ascended to the throne as a teenager and quickly became known for his military acumen and unyielding determination. His life was a tapestry of battlefield triumphs and strategic gambles, marked by a relentless pursuit of victory and national glory. From the stunning victory at Narva to the fateful defeat at Poltava, Charles's military campaigns shaped not only his kingdom, but also the course of European history. His domestic policies, though overshadowed by his military endeavors, were instrumental in shaping the Swedish state. Charles XII remains a complex figure in history. Revered as a national hero in Sweden for his bravery and commitment to his country, he is also viewed as a controversial figure whose war-focused reign brought significant challenges and losses to his kingdom. The legacy of Charles XII is one of contrasts. A warrior king who inspired his soldiers with his bravery, yet whose unyielding pursuit of military conquest ultimately led to his nation's decline in power and influence. As we look back on the life of Charles XII, we see a story that is intrinsically woven into the fabric of European history. His reign, marked by both brilliance and controversy, serves as a reminder of the complexities of leadership and the enduring impact of historical figures on the world stage. Charles XII of Sweden, a warrior king whose life story continues to fascinate and provoke debate, remains an integral part of the rich tapestry of European history. His legacy, complex and multifaceted, continues to resonate through the centuries, a testament to the enduring power of historical figures to shape the course of nations.